The banking app flashed access denied in a harsh red banner, as if my own money had filed a restraining order against me. Then my father answered the phone instantly, his voice calm and clipped like he had been waiting for the call. When I reached the branch, the manager did not ask for my password. She simply asked if I knew why my parents had just become the legal decision makers for my $480,000 trust fund. My name is Daisy Caldwell, and up until 8:45 this morning, I was a solvent, independent 34-year-old woman with a career in graphic design, a modest apartment in Chicago, and a grandmother who had loved me enough to leave me a safety net. By 8:46, I was a casualty of a digital war I did not even know had been declared. It started with the coffee. It was a Tuesday, the kind of day that feels like nothing, just a bridge between the start of the week and the middle of it. I was standing in my kitchen, waiting for the brewing cycle to finish, and I did what everyone does in the gap between moments. I picked up my phone. I tapped the blue icon of my banking app, not because I needed to move mountains, but because I had a recurring subscription for design software hitting my account that day, and I liked to see the numbers balance out. It was a reflex. It was muscle memory. The Face ID icon swirled for a second, a little animated lock jittering at the top of the screen. Usually, it unlocks with a satisfying click sound and reveals my checking balance, my savings, and the separate, untouchable line item for the trust fund. Today, the screen went black for a microsecond, and then it returned with a banner that spanned the entire top width of the display. It was red, not a soft warning orange, but a violent, stop sign red. Access denied. I frowned, wiping my thumb over the front camera lens, assuming I had smudged it with coffee grounds or lotion. I tried again. The little lock shook its head at me. It did not offer a prompt to try again. It just sat there, obstinate and closed. I typed in my passcode manually. I know my passcode. I have used the same 6 digits since I was 19 years old. I punched them in with deliberate precision. 1, 9, 8, 4, 2, 2. The screen loaded, the little circle spinning with agonizing slowness, giving me a moment of hope. Before the red banner returned. Harder this time. Account locked. Contact administrator. Administrator? I was the administrator. This was my money. These were my accounts. I felt a prickle of heat start at the back of my neck. The specific, modern anxiety of being disconnected from your own life. I closed the app entirely, swiping it up to kill the process, and relaunched it. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the bank's servers were down. Banks have maintenance hours, right? But usually not at 9 in the morning on a Tuesday. I tried the desktop login next. I walked over to my workspace, woke up my laptop, and navigated to the bank's website. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Username. Password. Enter. The page did not even pretend to load my dashboard. It redirected me instantly to a generic security page. The text was stark black on white. Your access privileges have been revoked. Please visit a branch for further assistance. Revoked. That was a legal word. That was a word used for criminals. For children who had broken the rules. For employees who had been fired and escorted out of the building. It was not a word for a customer with a $480,000 trust fund and a credit score of 790. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a dull, rhythmic thud that echoed in my ears. I reached for my phone again, intending to call the customer service line, the one on the back of my debit card, but before I could dial, a notification slid down from the top of the screen. It was an email. The sender was the bank's automated security system. I tapped it open, my breath catching in my throat. Subject: Security Alert. Profile Update. Dear Ms. Caldwell, your account access has been updated. If you have questions regarding these changes, please refer to the primary account holder or legal representative. There was no link. There was no button that said, if this wasn't you, click here. There was just a period at the end of the sentence. Heavy and final. Refer to the legal representative. I stared at the words until they blurred. I am the legal representative. I am the only person on that account. My grandmother established the trust specifically for me, to be released fully upon my 30th birthday. I'd turned 30 4 years ago. The money was mine. The access was mine. Unless, the realization hit me like a physical blow to the stomach, knocking the wind out of me. I did not want to believe it. It felt paranoid. It felt like the plot of one of the thrillers I read to fall asleep, but the timing was too precise. The wording was too specific. My hands shook as I pulled up my contacts. I hovered over my father's name, Dad. We had spoken 3 days ago. We had argued about my career, again. He had told me I was wasting my potential, that freelance work was unstable, that I needed guidance. I had told him, for the 100th time, that I was happy, that I was fine. I pressed the call button. Usually, my father lets it ring. He is a busy man, a man of important meetings and golf tea times, and he likes to make people wait, even his children. He likes to establish that his time is more valuable than yours. This time, the phone did not even complete the first ring. "Daisy," he said. There was no hello, no good morning, just my name, spoken with a terrifying lack of surprise. He answered too fast. He answered like he had been sitting by the phone, watching the clock, waiting for the inevitable reaction to the grenade he had just tossed into my life. "Dad," I said, and I hated how breathless I sounded. I wanted to sound furious, but I sounded scared. "I can't get into my bank account. The app says access denied. It says I need to contact a legal representative." "Yes," he said. His voice was smooth, polished, the voice he used when he was closing a deal or explaining to a waiter why the wine was unacceptable. "We anticipated you might be confused." "Confused?" I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "I'm not confused. Dad, I'm locked out. Did you do something? How could you do something? My name is on that account." "Daisy, please." Another voice cut in. It was my mother. She must have been on speakerphone, sitting right next to him. Her voice was pitched in that specific register she reserved for when she wanted to paint me as hysterical. It was soft, pitying, and laced with venom. "Lower your voice. You sound emotional." "I am emotional," I snapped, losing the battle for composure. "Someone stole my access to $500,000. Why are you on the line? What is going on?" "We haven't stolen anything, sweetheart," my mother said, soothingly, as if talking to a toddler holding a pair of scissors. "We are stepping in, temporarily. Your father and I have been very worried about you lately. You've been erratic. You've been spending impulsively. We're just putting some guardrails in place, for your own good." The room seemed to tilt. Erratic? I paid my taxes early. I watered my plants. I had a savings plan. I had never been erratic in my life. I was the boring sister. I was the reliable one. "I am 34 years old," I said, my voice trembling now, not with fear, but with a cold, dawning rage. "You cannot just step in. That is illegal. That is my money. Grandma left it to me." "It's for your protection, Daisy," my father said, his tone hardening, dropping the pretense of comfort. "We have filed the necessary paperwork. The bank has accepted it. We are acting as your power of attorney until you are better." "Better?" I whispered. "I'm not sick." "That is exactly what a sick person would say." My mother sighed. "We're doing this because we love you. Now, don't make a scene. We can discuss this at dinner on Sunday. Until then, if you need groceries or gas, just let us know, and we will transfer a small allowance to your checking." Allowance. They were grounding me. They were grounding a 34-year-old woman and holding her livelihood hostage. "I am going to the bank," I said. "I am going to the bank, and I'm going to fix this, and then I am going to call the police." "Daisy," my father warned, his voice dropping an octave. "Do not do that. You will only embarrass yourself. The bank has the documentation. You will look unstable." "Watch me," I said. I ended the call. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I stood there for 5 seconds. breathing in the silence of my apartment. It felt different now. The sunlight hitting the floorboards felt aggressive. The hum of the refrigerator sounded like a countdown. They had planned this. They had discussed it, prepared for it, and executed it while I was sleeping. They had a script. You're erratic. You're emotional. It's for your own good. I did not change out of my jeans and sweatshirt. I did not brush my hair. I grabbed my purse, checking frantically to make sure my driver's license was there. I grabbed my car keys. I ran out of the apartment, bypassing the elevator and taking the stairs 2 at a time, my heart racing faster than my feet. I needed to get to the branch, the physical branch, the one place where they couldn't hide behind a PDF or a phone screen. I needed to look a human being in the eye and scream if I had to. I threw myself into the driver's seat of my car, my hands fumbling with the ignition. As the engine roared to life, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced at it, expecting my father again, expecting a threat or a command. It was a text message from Sloane, my younger sister. I grabbed the phone, my eyes scanning the preview on the lock screen. Sloane, who always played both sides. Sloane, who borrowed money from me and complained about our parents to me, but always showed up to Sunday dinner with a smile. Sloane, don't embarrass the family at the bank. They're doing what they have to do. I froze. My foot hovered over the gas pedal. I hadn't told Sloane I was going to the bank. I had only told our parents that 10 seconds before I hung up. Sloane wasn't guessing. She wasn't just observing. She was in the room, or she was in the group chat I wasn't a part of. She knew. She knew before I even started the car. A chill that had nothing to do with the Chicago wind cut through me. This wasn't just my parents being controlling. My parents had been controlling my whole life. I knew how to handle that. I knew how to dodge their guilt trips and ignore their advice. This was different. This wasn't an argument. This was a coup. The access denied banner wasn't a glitch. It was the opening shot. And the fact that Sloane texted me right now, at this exact second, meant they were tracking the timeline. They knew exactly how long it would take me to panic, how long it would take me to call, and how long it would take me to decide to drive to the branch. It was timed. It was choreographed. I looked at the time on the dashboard, 9:12 in the morning. They thought I would hesitate. They thought I would cry in my kitchen or call them back to beg for that allowance. They thought the shame of being called unstable would keep me inside the house. They were wrong. I threw the car into reverse, tires screeching slightly against the pavement. I didn't care about the speed limit. I didn't care about the traffic on the loop. I had 480,000 reasons to get to that bank, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of embarrassing the Caldwell family. I was afraid of what they would do if I didn't stop them right now. The heavy glass doors of the First National branch swung shut behind me, sealing off the noise of the Chicago traffic and replacing it with a hermetically sealed silence that smelled faintly of sanitizer and expensive coffee. This was not a place for emergencies. It was a place designed to make you feel that money was not a volatile, living thing, but a calm, architectural fact. The ceilings were high, the lighting was soft and golden, and the carpet was thick enough to swallow the sound of my sneakers, which felt squeaky and cheap in this cathedral of wealth. I walked straight to the reception desk. The woman behind the marble counter looked up with a smile that was practiced, polite, and entirely impenetrable. She wore a silk scarf knotted at her throat and a blazer that looked like it cost more than my car payment. "Good morning," she said, her voice a soft chime. "How can we help you today?" "I need to speak to a trust specialist," I said. I tried to keep my voice level, but I could hear the tremor in it, the high-pitched vibration of adrenaline that I could not suppress. "It is urgent. My account access has been revoked." The smile did not waver, but her eyes flicked to my hands, which were gripping my purse strap white-knuckled. She typed something into her terminal. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said. "I don't have an appointment. I have a situation. My name is Daisy Caldwell." She paused, her fingers hovering over the keys. The name seemed to register something on her screen. Or perhaps she just recognized the desperation in my posture. Banks like this are trained to handle desperation quietly. They do not want scenes. They want quiet resolution in soundproof rooms. "One moment, Ms. Caldwell," she said. She picked up a phone, whispered something I could not hear, and then nodded. "Mr. Morales can see you. He is our senior trust officer. Just through the glass doors to your left. The second office." I did not wait for her to point the way. I walked past the line of tellers, past the brochure stand advertising low-interest mortgages, and toward the row of glass-walled offices. The second one had a nameplate on the door, Javier Morales. I knocked once and opened the door. Javier Morales was a man in his late 50s, with salt and pepper hair cut close to his scalp, and the kind of reassured, steady demeanor that suggested he had seen market crashes, divorces, and sudden deaths, and had handled them all with the same calm efficiency. He was wearing a charcoal suit and rimless glasses. He stood up as I entered, extending a hand. "Ms. Caldwell," he said, "please, have a seat. How can I assist you?" I sat down, the leather chair cool against my back. I did not want to sit. I wanted to pace. I wanted to scream. But I forced myself to sit because I knew that in this room, hysteria was a liability. If I acted crazy, I validated my parents' narrative. I had to be the sanest person in the building. "I tried to log into my trust account this morning," I said. Skipping the pleasantries, "I got an access denied message. My father told me on the phone that he and my mother have stepped in. I want to know exactly what that means. And I want my access restored. Immediately." Javier nodded slowly, his expression serious but unalarmed. He sat back down and woke up his computer. "I can certainly look into that for you. Let's start with some verification. May I see your identification?" I handed him my driver's license. He took it, studied it for a second, checked the expiration date, and then looked at me to match the face to the photo. He handed it back with a polite nod. "Thank you," he said. "Let me pull up your profile." He began to type. I watched his hands. They were manicured. Steady hands. The clicking of the keyboard was the only sound in the room. I held my breath, watching his eyes scan the monitors. Then, he stopped. It was not a dramatic stop. He did not gasp. He did not jump. He simply froze mid-click. His index finger hovered over the mouse button, and the polite, customer service warmth evaporated from his face instantly. It was replaced by something colder, sharper. It was the look of a pilot noticing a red light on the dashboard. It was the look of incident response. He leaned in closer to the screen, his eyes narrowing slightly behind his glasses. He clicked twice, rapidly, then typed in a command that required a long string of characters. He waited. "Ms. Caldwell," he said, and his voice had changed. It was no longer the voice of a man selling a service. It was the voice of a man reading a verdict. "When was the last time you accessed this account online?" "Yesterday," I said, "around 4 o'clock in the afternoon." "And you have not authorized any changes to the account structure since then?" "No," I said. "None." Javier turned his monitor slightly away from me, a protective gesture that made my stomach drop. "The system shows that your online credentials were disabled at 8:05 this morning. The reason listed is a change in legal status." "What legal status?" I demanded. Javier looked at me, his face carefully neutral. "The account is now under a power of attorney. The new designated agents are listed as Robert and Catherine Caldwell." The air left the room. Hearing it from my father was one thing. Hearing it from a banker with a screen full of data was another. It made it real. It made it administrative. "I did not sign a power of attorney," I said. My voice was flat. I was proud of that flatness. It sounded like truth. "I have not signed anything for my parents in 10 years. This is a mistake, or it is fraud." Javier did not argue. He did not give me a pitying look or ask if I was sure. He looked at me with a clinical intensity. In his line of work, he likely knew that families were capable of anything. He turned back to his screen. "If you did not sign it, then we have a significant problem," he said. Because the document was uploaded, verified by a notary, and accepted by our back-office legal team this morning. That is why your access was cut. Show me, I said. I will, he said. But first, I need to check the transaction queue. He clicked onto a new tab. I saw his jaw tighten. A small muscle in his cheek jumped. Ms. Caldwell, he said quietly. We need to move very quickly. Why? I asked. Because there is a pending wire transfer, Javier said. It was initiated 30 minutes ago by the new agents. It is currently in the clearing queue. How much? I asked, though I think I already knew. $465,000, Javier said. The number hung in the air between us. $465,000. That was almost everything. That was the principal. That was the money my grandmother had saved for 40 years. That was my rent, my food, my future, my independence. They weren't just taking control. They were liquidating me. They were emptying the vessel so I would have nothing left to hold on to. Where is it going? I asked. I cannot see the full destination details until it clears, Javier said. But it is an external transfer. It is set to clear at 12 o'clock noon today. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9:45. I had 2 hours and 15 minutes before I was destitute. Stop it, I said. Cancel it, right now. Javier hesitated. He clasped his hands on the desk. It is not that simple. Currently, the system recognizes your parents as the legal decision makers. They have the authorization codes. If I simply cancel the transfer, they will see it, and they will reinitiate it immediately, or they will go to another branch and demand a cashier's check. So what do? I asked. I am telling you that power of attorney is fake. I am standing here telling you I did not sign it. Does that count for nothing? It counts, Javier said. But to stop a transfer of this magnitude based on a dispute of authority, I cannot just push a button. I have to initiate a formal fraud investigation. I have to flag the account as compromised. Do it, I said. You need to understand what that means, Javier said, his voice dropping lower, becoming grave. If I place a fraud hold on this trust, it freezes everything. It locks the account completely. No money comes in. No money goes out. Your parents will be locked out. Yes, but so will you. You will not be able to access a single penny until the legal department resolves the dispute. That could take weeks. It could take months. I stared at him. I thought about my rent check due on the 1st. I thought about the groceries I needed to buy. I thought about the lawyer I would undoubtedly need to hire. Who would want a retainer I could not pay? If I froze the account, I was broke. If I didn't freeze the account, I was erased. My parents knew this. They knew exactly how the banking system worked. They were counting on me being too scared to blow up my own life. They thought I would try to negotiate. They thought I would call them back and beg them to stop. And they would graciously agree to leave the money alone if I just came home, if I just signed the papers, if I just agreed that I was sick and needed their help. It was a hostage situation. And the hostage was my future. I looked at Javier. He was waiting for an instruction. He could not act without my command. He held the mouse, but I held the trigger. I thought about my father's calm voice on the phone. We are stepping in. I thought about Sloane's text. Don't embarrass the family. They wanted control. They wanted me dependent. They wanted me to be the little girl who needed an allowance. I would rather starve than let them win. I would rather burn the whole thing down than let them take it. Freeze it, I said. Javier looked at me for a long moment. He seemed to be assessing whether I truly understood the consequences. He saw that I did. Are you certain? He asked. Once I place this code, I cannot override it myself. It goes to corporate security. Freeze it, I repeated. Lock it down. If I can't have it, they can't have it. Javier nodded once. He turned back to the screen. He typed a command. It was short, maybe 4 or 5 keystrokes. He hit the enter key with a definitive. Plastic clack. Done, he said. The transfer has been suspended. The account status is now restricted, Fraud investigation pending. No funds can be moved. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. But the relief didn't come. Instead, the room seemed to get smaller. The silence in the office felt heavier, denser. The soft lighting felt like an interrogation lamp. We had stopped the bleeding, but we hadn't fixed the wound. In fact, we had just declared war. Javier did not smile. He did not say everything will be fine. He looked at the screen, then back at me. Now, he said. We have to prove it, because in about 5 minutes, your parents are going to get a notification that their transfer failed, and they are going to call. Let them call, I said. We need to look at the document, Javier said. I am going to pull up the image of the power of attorney they uploaded. We need to see what we are dealing with. He clicked the mouse again, opening a file. The quiet dread in the room intensified. It wasn't just money anymore. It was evidence, and as I sat there, waiting for the document to load, I realized that the safe, boring life I had built for myself was officially over. I was no longer a graphic designer with a trust fund. I was a plaintiff in a case against my own blood. Here it is, Javier said, turning the monitor toward me. I looked at the screen, and the dread turned into something cold and sharp in my chest. Javier tilted the monitor so I could see the document clearly. It was a PDF, crisp and high resolution, the kind of file that looks unassailable simply because it is tidy. It was titled General Durable Power of Attorney. And seeing those words linked to my name felt like seeing my own obituary printed in the morning paper before I had even died. I leaned in, my breath fogging the air between me and the screen. I expected to see something messy. I expected a napkin scrawl or a form filled out in crayon, something that screamed fraud, but this was terrifyingly professional. The font was Times New Roman, standard size 12. The margins were perfect. My name, Daisy Ann Caldwell, was printed in bold in the principal field. My parents' names, Robert James Caldwell and Catherine Elizabeth Caldwell, were listed as agents. It looked legitimate. That was the horror of it. It looked like the kind of paperwork you sign when buying a house or setting up a will. It had the weight of law behind it. Look at the notary stamp, Javier said, pointing to the bottom of the second page. I looked. It was a standard Illinois notary seal, stamped in dark ink. It had a commission expiration date, a registration number, and a signature. It looked clean. It looked boring. It looks real, I whispered. It passes the visual inspection, Javier admitted. But look at the signature, your signature. He zoomed in on the line marked Signature of Principal. I stared at the black loops and curves. It was my name. It was my handwriting, but it wasn't my hand. It was an uncanny valley version of my autograph. The D in Daisy was too round, too perfect. I write my D with a sharp, hurried angle at the top. The Y at the end of my first name usually trails off into a straight line, but this one curled up in a jaunty little loop. It was a close imitation. It was the kind of forgery that would fool a teller or a clerk who didn't know me. But to me, it looked like an insult. It looked like someone had practiced it. It looked like someone who had watched me sign birthday cards and permission slips for 30 years and thought, I can do that. That is not me, I said. It is close, but it is stiff. You can see where the pen hesitated on the curve of the C. I don't hesitate when I write my own name. I believe you, Javier said. But the bank's digital system does not analyze pen pressure. It analyzes the image match, and this is a 70% match or higher. That is why it went through. He clicked a button, and the screen refreshed to show a second document attached to the file bundle. This is the part that concerns me more, Javier said. A power of attorney usually requires a reason to be activated immediately, or it is a springing power that only activates upon incapacitation. Your parents filed this as a springing power that has now sprung. What does that mean? I asked, though the cold feeling in my stomach was spreading to my limbs. It means they had to prove you were incapable of managing your own affairs, Javier said. They uploaded a physician's capacity declaration. The document on the screen was on letterhead, Lakeview Medical Partners. I scanned the text. It was dense with medical jargon, but phrases jumped out at me like physical slaps. Acute emotional instability, cognitive impairment, temporary psychosis. Patient is a danger to her financial well-being. Ms. Caldwell, Javier said, his voice very gentle, like he was asking a victim where it hurt. I have to ask this for the record. Have you been hospitalized recently? Have you seen a psychiatrist or a physician who would write this? No, I said. The word exploded out of me. No, I haven't been to a doctor for anything other than a flu shot in 2 years. I am not unstable. I am not psychotic. Who wrote this? I looked at the signature block at the bottom of the letter. Dr. Aris Thorne, M.D. I don't know a Dr. Thorne, I said. I have never met this person. Javier was typing again, his eyes darting between the document and his notes. If this doctor does not exist, or if they never saw you, this goes from theft to a very serious criminal offense. But look here. He pointed to the very top of the PDF, the header that appears when a document is scanned or faxed. It was a faint line of text, easily missed if you weren't looking for the breadcrumbs of betrayal. Sent from 312-555-0198. January 27th, 8:02 a.m. I stopped breathing. I knew that number. I didn't just recognize it. I felt it in my bones. It was the rhythm of my childhood. 312-555-0198. It was the landline in my mother's home office, the office with the mahogany desk where she paid the bills, where she organized the charity galas, where she kept the filing cabinets that were locked to everyone but her. That's her fax line, I said. That is my mother's home office number. Javier nodded grimly. They didn't even try to hide the source. They faxed it from their own home to a digital conversion service, then uploaded the file. It is arrogant. They aren't arrogant, I said, staring at the number. They just don't think I'm smart enough to notice, or they don't think you would check. We check, Javier said. But there is one more thing. When they uploaded the package, the system required a photo ID of the principal, that is you, to verify the identity against the account profile. He clicked to the third page of the bundle. There was my face, but it was a younger face. My hair was longer, my cheeks a little fuller. I was smiling in the photo, a wide, naive smile that I hadn't worn in years. I looked at the issue date. May 12, 2016. I looked at the expiration date. May 12, 2020. That license expired 6 years ago, I said. I have a new one. I moved apartments 3 years ago. That address is their address. That is my old license. Javier leaned back in his chair. So, they did not steal your wallet. They did not hack your current cloud storage. They used what they already had. They have a box, I said. The memory surfaced, clear and sharp. The fireproof safe in the study. For emergencies. Daisy, we keep copies of everything for emergencies. They kept my old IDs. They kept my old passports. They never throw anything away. They used an expired license to steal my life. The system flagged the expiration date, Javier said, pointing to a small yellow triangle on his screen. But because the names matched and the power of attorney was notarized, a human reviewer overrode the flag. They likely assumed you just hadn't updated your file with us, or that the scan was of an old document but the legal authority was current. Your parents counted on human error, and they got it. I looked at the 3 documents, the forged signature, the fake medical letter faxed from my mother's desk, the expired ID pulled from a family archive. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a stranger in a hoodie typing code in a basement. It was a domestic excavation. They had mined my history to bury my future. This is not just fraud, Javier said. He wasn't talking to me anymore. He was talking to the situation. He reached for his desk phone. If this was just a thief trying to wire money, they would not create a medical paper trail. They would not set up a legal guardianship framework. This is heavy. Coordinated, I supplied. It's a takeover. Yes, Javier said, and I cannot handle this alone. This is beyond the scope of a standard fraud claim. I need to bring in the branch manager and our trust compliance officer. He dialed a 4-digit extension. Tanya, it is Javier. I need you in my office. Now. Code red on the Caldwell Trust. Yes. The principal is here. No. The real principal. Bring the compliance log. He hung up and looked at me. His face was grave. Ms. Caldwell, from this moment forward, we are entering a different phase. We are no longer just fixing a banking error. We are building a legal defense. Everything we say, everything we document, is going to be scrutinized by lawyers and potentially a judge. Are you ready for that? I looked at the fax header again. January 27th, 8:02 a.m. My mother had woken up, made coffee, walked into her office, and faxed a document claiming I was insane. Then she probably went to have breakfast. I thought about the access denied screen. I thought about the red banner. I am ready, I said. Call them in. The door opened, and a woman walked in. She was tall, wearing a severe navy suit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that looked painful. She held a tablet in one hand and a physical file folder in the other. This was Tanya Whitaker, the branch manager. I knew her type. She was the person who came in when the polite smiles stopped working. Ms. Caldwell, Tanya said, nodding to me. She didn't smile. She walked around the desk and stood behind Javier, looking at the screen. Javier briefed me on the text. Show me the upload metadata. Javier pointed to the fax header and the timestamps. Tanya's eyes scanned the data. She was faster than Javier. She absorbed the information like a machine. Faxed from a residential line, Tanya murmured. Expired ID used for verification. Medical capacity letter from a... She squinted at the screen. Dr. Eris Thorne. I've never heard of that practice group, and I know every major provider in the city. She looked at me. Do your parents have access to your medical portals? Your insurance logins? I don't think so, I said, but I didn't think they had my old driver's license either. We have to assume they have everything, Tanya said. She looked at Javier. Lock down the document trail. I want the upload timestamps, the employee ID of the reviewer who overrode the expired license flag, and the appointment desk logs. Appointment desk? I asked. The power of attorney wasn't just uploaded, Tanya said, her voice sharp. To be fully activated for a trust of this size, there usually has to be an in-person component. Someone had to come into a branch to finalize the signatory rights. The system shows an appointment was completed yesterday at 4:30 p.m., but I wasn't here, I said. I was at work. Exactly, Tanya said. Which means someone came here, and if they finalized the access, they had to show ID. Javier, Tanya commanded. Check the trusted contact info. Was there a change there too? Javier clicked another tab. Yes, at 8:10 this morning, 5 minutes after the POA was processed, a new trusted contact was added, Catherine Caldwell. Of course, Tanya said. Belts and suspenders. If the POA gets challenged, the trusted contact status allows them to receive information about the account for your safety. It is a redundant control mechanism. She turned to me, and her expression was intense. Ms. Caldwell, I am going to print a formal affidavit. You need to sign it. It states that you did not sign the POA. You were not hospitalized, and you do not authorize any agent to act on your behalf. This is not just for us. This is for when they try to come back. Come back? I asked. They will come back, Tanya said. People who go to this much trouble, faking medical records, digging up old IDs, they don't stop because of a frozen account. They will try to redirect your mail. They will try to file paperwork in court. They are trying to create a record of you being incompetent. Every document they generate is a brick in the wall they are building around you. She handed me a pen. It was a heavy, expensive pen. Sign, she said, and then we are going to pull the security footage from yesterday afternoon. Footage? I asked. The appointment, Tanya said. If someone came in here pretending to be you to activate this POA, we have them on camera. I took the pen. My hand was shaking, but I forced it to be still. I signed my name, the real signature, the sharp D, the trailing Y. Pull the footage, I said. I want to see who they think I am. Tanya Whitaker did not sit down. She stood behind Javier's ergonomic chair, her hands resting on the back of it like she was piloting a vessel through a storm. She did not look at me with the soft, customer service pity that the receptionist had offered. Her eyes were hard, assessing, and entirely devoid of warmth. She looked like a woman who had spent 20 years cleaning up other people's catastrophes, and she had no patience for the emotional debris that usually accompanied them. State your full name for the record, please, Tanya said. Her voice was not a request. It was a command. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the ceiling, as if dictating to an invisible stenographer. Daisy Ann Caldwell, I said. My voice sounded thin in the acoustic quiet of the office. Date of birth? June 14th, 1991. And do you, Daisy Ann Caldwell, being of sound mind and body, currently authorize any person, living or corporate, to act as your agent regarding the assets in trust account ending in 4490? No, I said. Absolutely not. And did you, at any point in the last 48 hours, sign a general, durable power of attorney granting Robert and Catherine Caldwell access to said funds? No, Tanya nodded once. Sharply, she looked down at Javier. Lockett, I want the entire document trail preserved. Do not just freeze the funds. I want the upload timestamps, the IP address of the uploader, the employee ID of the reviewer who approved the expired license, and the terminal ID of the appointment desk. Nobody touches this file from this second forward without my personal override code. Do you understand? Understood, Javier said. His fingers were flying across the keyboard now, executing a series of commands that sounded like small, plastic gunshots. I am archiving the audit log now. It is 17 megabytes of data. Access logs are secured. Good, Tanya said. She finally turned her eyes to me. They were gray and unblinking. Ms. Caldwell, you are currently the victim of a very sophisticated, very aggressive attempt to seize control of your identity. This is not a simple case of theft. Theft is when someone steals your credit card to buy televisions. This is an erasure. They are trying to replace you. I felt a shiver go down my spine that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. They are my parents, I said, though the words felt ash dry in my mouth. They think they are helping. They think I am incapable. That is the narrative they are building, Tanya said, her voice cutting through my defense like a scalpel. And they are building it with professional tools, which brings me to a very uncomfortable question. You need to answer me honestly. Do not protect them. Do not minimize it. She leaned over the desk, invading my personal space just enough to make me focus entirely on her. Do your parents have access to your medical portals? Your insurance logins? Your primary care physician's messaging system? I opened my mouth to say no, but the word died in my throat. I thought about the last time I had visited my parents' house. I thought about the way my mother always sat at the kitchen table with her reading glasses on, sorting through piles of mail, not just her mail, family mail. I don't know, I admitted, the shame of it heating my cheeks. I mean, I am on their health insurance plan still. I aged out at 26. But then I had a gap in coverage when I started freelancing, and my dad put me on a rider policy through his consulting firm. He said it was cheaper. And who manages the login for that policy? Tanya asked. My mother, I whispered. She handles the paperwork. She always says she is just taking care of the administrative stuff so I don't have to worry about it. Tanya exchanged a look with Javier. It was a look that said, target acquired. Ms. Caldwell, Tanya said, straightening up. If your mother has access to the insurance portal, she can see every doctor you have visited. She can see every prescription you have filled, And more importantly, she can use the internal messaging system of those portals to send requests. She can request records. She can update contact information. She can change your emergency contact to herself. But she can't fake a medical letter, I argued, clinging to the last shred of logic I had left. That letter from Dr. Thorne, I don't know who that is. She doesn't need to fake the letter if she controls the intake form, Tanya said. If she used your insurance portal to find a new provider, perhaps a telehealth psychiatrist who does remote evaluations, and she filled out the intake forms as you, listing all the symptoms she wanted them to see, then she creates a paper trail of instability before the doctor even speaks to you. My stomach turned over. I remembered the text message from my mother last week. Did you get that email about the insurance update? Just forward it to me. I'll handle it. I had forwarded it. I hadn't even opened it. I had just forwarded it. I gave it to her, I said, my voice trembling. I gave her the access. I didn't know. That is how it works, Tanya said, not unkindly, but without softness. Predators do not break in. They wait to be invited, and in families, the invitation is usually standing. She turned back to Javier. Check the trusted contact field again. I want to see the exact timestamp. Javier clicked on the tab he had opened earlier. Updated today. 8:10 in the morning, 5 minutes after the power of attorney was accepted. Who added it? Tanya asked. The system shows it was added via the mobile app, Javier said, from a device labeled Caldwell iPad Pro. That is my dad's iPad, I said. He reads the news on it. Tanya nodded. So, here is the sequence. 802, they fax the fake medical letter. 805, the power of attorney is approved by a negligent reviewer. 810, they log in, likely using the credentials they just reset, and add your mother as a trusted contact. Why? I asked. If they already had the power of attorney, why did they need to be a trusted contact? Isn't that a step down? It is not a step down, Tanya said. It is a safety net. It is belts and suspenders. A power of attorney allows them to move money. A trusted contact allows the bank to share information with them if we suspect you are being defrauded, or if we are concerned about your mental capacity. Do you understand the brilliance of that move? I shook my head, feeling sick. If you came in here today and successfully argued that the power of attorney was fake, Tanya explained, and we revoked it, the system would still have your mother listed as the person we are legally allowed to call if you seem confused or distressed. So, if I kick them out the front door, the system opens the back window for them. They set it up so that no matter what move you make, the bank is legally obligated to report back to them. Redundant control, Javier murmured. It is distinct. It is architectural. It is entrapment, I said. So even now, even though I am sitting here telling you to freeze it, you have to tell them? Technically, Tanya said, if I followed standard protocol, yes, when I place the fraud hold, the system automatically generates a notice to the trusted contact. Don't do it, I said. Please. I am not going to do it, Tanya said. I am overriding the protocol. But to do that, I need you to sign a formal affidavit. This is not just a bank form. This is a sworn statement that will go to our legal department and potentially to the police. It states that you are the sole operator of this account, that the documents provided by your parents are fraudulent, and that you are stripping them of all status. Trusted contact, beneficiary, agent, all of it. We are wiping the board clean. She reached into the folder she was holding and pulled out a document. It was heavy, cream-colored paper, affidavit of identity theft and unauthorized access. Read it, Tanya said. Every word, and then sign it. I read it. The words were dry and legalistic, but they felt like a shield. Daisy Ann Caldwell, attest under penalty of perjury. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady this time. The shaking had stopped, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. They had used my trust. They had used my laziness. They had used my love. And they had weaponized it all to turn me into a child. I signed, the sharp D, The trailing Y. I pressed down hard enough to indent the paper. Witnessed, Javier said, signing his name on the line below mine. Witnessed, Tanya said, signing the third line. She picked up the paper and blew on the ink, then handed it to Javier. Scan this immediately, upload it to the primary file, tag it, legal override, and then delete Catherine Caldwell from the trusted contact field. Hard delete. I want her name gone from the system. Processing, Javier said. Tanya turned back to me. Her face was still hard, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes now. Respect, maybe, or perhaps just the recognition that I was no longer a liability, but a co-belligerent. I am issuing you a case number, Tanya said. She wrote a string of digits on a sticky note and handed it to me. Keep this on your person. Do not save it in your phone. If your phone is synced to any cloud account they have access to, they will see it. Write it down. Memorize it. I took the note. Case 99-CW-2026-Alpha. Now, Tanya said, I need to warn you about what happens next, because this part is going to be ugly. Ugly how? I asked. You froze the money. They can't touch it. We stopped the money, Tanya corrected. We did not stop them. You have cut off their supply, which means they are going to escalate. They have already shown they are willing to manufacture medical evidence. The next logical step for them is not to come back to the bank. It is to go to the post office. The post office? They will file a change of address request, Tanya said. If they haven't already, they will try to redirect your bank statements, your credit card bills, your legal notices to their house. They want to control the information flow. If you don't know you're being sued, you can't show up to court. Sued? I said. Who would sue me? They will, Tanya said flatly. Or rather, they will file a petition for emergency guardianship. They will take that fake letter from Dr. Thorne, and they will take the fact that your account is now frozen for fraud, which they will spin as you being the one who caused the problem, and they will walk into a family court. They will say, Your Honor, our daughter is having a breakdown. She locked herself out of her funds. She is confused. We need emergency custody to pay her bills. I stared at her. It was so diabolical, so complete. They would use my defense against me. They will try to create records, Tanya continued. Every text they send you, every voicemail they leave, is not a conversation. It is an exhibit. If they text you saying, We are so worried, please call us, and you text back, Go to hell, they will print that out and show it to a judge as proof that you are aggressive and unstable. If they call you and you scream, they will record it. So what do I do? I asked. I felt like the walls were closing in again. You document, Tanya said. You become a recorder. You do not react. You respond. And you get ahead of them. You check your credit report today. You check your mail forwarding status today. And you get a lawyer who specializes in contested guardianships. Not a family friend. A shark. I don't have money for a shark, I said. My account is frozen. We can release a small stipend for legal counsel if you provide a retainer agreement, Javier interjected softly. It is a permitted exception under the fraud hold. Tanya nodded. Do that. But right now, your priority is containment. She looked at the security camera in the corner of the ceiling, then back at me. They used your past against you, Tanya said. Your old license, your old habits, your trust. Now you have to be someone they don't know. You have to be a stranger to them, cold, unpredictable, and silent. I can do that, I said. Good, Tanya said. Because I am about to call the police to report the identity theft, and when the officers get here, you cannot be the crying daughter. You have to be the complaining witness. Can you do that? Yes, I said. One more thing, Javier said. He was looking at the screen again. The system just flagged a query. What kind of query? Tanya snapped. A balance inquiry, Javier said. From the ATM in the lobby. The air in the room went sub-zero. The lobby? I repeated. Here? In this building? Yes, Javier said. Someone just tried to check the balance of the trust account using a debit card ending in 1138. That is the card we issued to the new agents this morning. Tanya moved to the window that looked out into the main banking floor. She adjusted the blinds just a fraction of an inch so she could see out without being seen. "They are here," Tanya said, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried more weight than a scream. "They didn't just transfer the money online. They came to the branch to make sure it went through." I stood up and moved toward the blinds, but Tanya put a hand on my chest, stopping me. "Do not let them see you," she hissed. "If they see you, the dynamic changes, right now. They think they are fighting a computer glitch. If they see you, they know they are fighting you." "I want to see them," I said. "I need to know if it is really them." "Look," Tanya said, stepping aside slightly, "but do not move the slat." I peered through the tiny gap in the blinds. The lobby was bright and quiet. There, standing at the ATM machine near the entrance, was a man in a beige trench coat and a woman in a floral scarf. My father, my mother. They looked normal. That was the most terrifying part. They didn't look like villains. They looked like the couple you see at the country club, or buying organic produce at the market. My father was tapping the screen of the ATM with aggressive, staccato pokes. My mother was standing beside him, looking around the lobby with a benevolent, terrifying smile. And then I saw the third person, standing slightly behind them, sitting in one of the waiting chairs, was a woman. She was wearing a mask, a medical mask, common enough these days, and large sunglasses. She was wearing a coat that looked exactly like my favorite winter coat. She had her hair pulled back in a ponytail, just like I wore mine when I was running errands. She was sitting with her hands folded in her lap, still as a statue. "Who is that?" I breathed. Tanya looked. Her eyes narrowed. "That," Tanya said, "is the person who pretended to be you yesterday. They brought her back." "Why?" I asked. "Because," Tanya said, "if the ATM doesn't work, they are going to try to come to the counter, and they brought their prop." I stared at the woman in the chair. It was like looking at a funhouse mirror reflection of myself, a distorted, silent version of Daisy Caldwell, built to nod and sign and obey. "That is not me," I said again, but this time it wasn't a defense. It was a realization. "No," Tanya said, "that is the replacement." She turned away from the window and picked up the phone. She didn't dial an extension this time. She dialed 3 digits, 911. "This is Tanya Whitaker, branch manager at First National," she said into the receiver. "I have a fraud in progress. I have the perpetrators on the premises, and I have a hostage situation regarding a high-value trust. Send a unit. Silent approach." She looked at me as she hung up. "Sit down, Daisy," she said. "The show is about to start." The blinds were still cracked just enough to see the lobby, but Tanya turned away from the window, her face set in a grim line. The silent alarm had been triggered. The police were en route, and my parents were standing 40 feet away, unaware that the ground beneath them had already shifted. But Tanya Whitaker was a woman who believed in redundancy. She did not just want to catch them. She wanted to bury them under a mountain of irrefutable proof. "Javier," she said, her voice dropping to a low, urgent register. "While we wait for the units to arrive, I want the footage from yesterday. I need to see the moment the power of attorney was signed. I need to see the face of the person they are claiming is you." Javier nodded, his hands moving over his keyboard with the fluidity of a concert pianist. He minimized the account balance screen and opened the dedicated security interface. The screen flickered, replacing the dry rows of numbers with a grid of camera angles. He selected the file labeled Desk 4, January 26th, 1600 hours. "Playback starting," Javier said. "I am putting it on the main monitor." The large screen on the wall flickered to life. The resolution was high definition, crisp enough to see the dust motes dancing in the shaft of light that fell across the banker's desk. The timestamp in the corner read, January 26th, 2026, 16:30:15. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the mahogany desk. I felt a wave of nausea roll through me. I was about to watch my own murder. In a sense, I was about to watch the moment my identity was stolen. The door in the video opened. My father walked in first. He wore the same camel-colored trench coat he was wearing right now in the lobby. On screen, he looked even more imposing. He walked with the confident, a heavy stride of a man who assumes doors will be held for him. He was holding a leather folio, the expensive kind. Italian leather, the one he used for closing consulting contracts. He placed it on the desk before he even sat down, claiming the territory. My mother followed him. She was smiling. It was her social smile, the one she wore at charity galas and board meetings. It was a terrifyingly genuine-looking smile. She touched the arm of the banker, a young woman I didn't recognize, with a familiarity that suggested they were old friends, or that my mother was a benevolent auntie just stopping by to help. She looked relaxed. She looked like she was doing a favor. And then, the third figure entered. "Freeze it," Tanya commanded. The image stopped. The figure was halfway through the doorframe. She was wearing a long wool coat, navy blue, belted tightly at the waist. It was a coat I owned. I had left it at my parents' house last Christmas because the closet in my apartment was too small. She wore dark jeans and boots that looked like my boots. Her hair was pulled back in a low, messy bun, the exact way I wore mine when I was working or running errands, but her face was obscured. She wore oversized tortoiseshell sunglasses, the kind that swallow half your face, and a blue surgical mask. "Clever," Tanya murmured. "The mask. They play on the social contract. Nobody asks a person in a mask to take it off in a bank anymore. Not if they cough once or twice. It is a perfect shield." "Play it," I said. "I want to see her move." Javier hit the spacebar. The figure walked to the chair between my parents. Her walk was wrong. It was subtle. Something a stranger would never notice, but I saw it instantly. I walk with a heavy heel strike. I march. This woman glided. She moved with a tentative, hesitant rhythm, like someone walking on ice. She sat down on the edge of the chair, her spine ramrod straight, her knees pressed together. She looked stiff. She looked like she was holding her breath. She looked like an actor waiting for a cue. My father did all the talking. I could see his mouth moving, his hands gesturing expansively. He pointed to the papers. He pointed to the woman. He laughed at something the banker said. He was charming the witness. He was creating a distortion field of charisma so that the banker wouldn't look too closely at the silent woman in the mask. My mother reached over and patted the woman's hand. It looked like a gesture of comfort, a mother soothing a nervous daughter, but watching it on the screen, knowing what I knew now, it looked like a warning. It looked like a restraint. "Stay still. Do your job." "Is that you?" Tanya asked. The question hung in the air, cold and absolute. She wasn't asking because she doubted me. She was asking because the resemblance was engineered to be undeniable. The hair color was right. The build was right. The clothes were mine. "No," I said. "That is not me." "Are you sure?" Tanya pressed. "Look at the posture. Look at the way she holds her purse." "I hold my purse on my left shoulder," I said, pointing at the screen. "She has it on her right. I am left-handed. She is using her right hand to adjust her glasses." "Good," Tanya said. "Keep looking. I need something physical, something forensic. Posture is subjective. I need a mark." On the screen, the banker pushed a stack of documents across the desk, the power of attorney. The woman in the mask stared at them. She didn't reach for the pen immediately. She looked at my father. He gave a barely perceptible nod, a micro gesture that screamed command. The woman reached out. She took the pen. "Zoom in on the hands," Tanya ordered. The camera view punched in, focusing on the desktop. The image became slightly grainier, but the details were still legible. The woman's hand was pale. Her fingers were long, manicured with a clear polish. She gripped the pen tightly, her knuckles showing white tension. She began to sign. I watched the tip of the pen trace the loops of my name. Daisy. As she moved her hand across the page to sign the second line, the cuff of her wool coat caught on the edge of the desk. It pulled up, just an inch, maybe two. Underneath the coat, she was wearing a gray long-sleeve shirt, but the sleeve of the shirt had ridden up slightly as she extended her arm. For a split second, maybe 3 frames of video, the inner skin of her right wrist was exposed to the overhead fluorescent lights of the bank office. "Stop," I shouted. "Right there. Go back 3 frames." Javier tapped the back arrow key. Click, click, click. The image froze. There, on the delicate, pale skin of the inner wrist, just below the palm, was a scar. It was thin, white, and shaped like a crescent moon. It looked like an old burn, or perhaps a cut from broken glass that had healed badly. It was distinct, it was permanent, and it was illuminated perfectly by the bank's high-quality lighting system. I looked at the screen, then I looked down at my own hands. I rolled up the sleeve of my hoodie, I turned my wrists over, palms up, displaying them to Tanya and Javier. My skin was smooth, unmarked. I had a freckle on my left forearm and a small mole near my elbow, but my wrists were blank. I had never burned myself there. I had never cut myself there. "I don't have a scar," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "I have never had a scar there." Tanya leaned in until her nose was almost touching the screen. She traced the shape of the crescent scar with her finger, not touching the glass, just hovering over it. "That is a surgical scar," she said softly. "Or a distinctive injury. That is biometric data." She turned to me. The look on her face was no longer just professional intensity. It was something darker. It was the look of someone who realizes they are looking at a crime scene, not a clerical error. "They brought someone into this bank," Tanya said, her voice quiet and terrifyingly clear. "They didn't just steal your credentials. They didn't just hack a password. They physically replaced you. They dressed a stranger in your clothes, prepped her, rehearsed her, and walked her past our security cameras." "Who is she?" I whispered, staring at the woman who was wearing my life. "It doesn't matter who she is right now," Tanya said. "What matters is that she has a mark that you do not have. This frame? This is the kill shot. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the person who signed that document is not Daisy Caldwell." I looked at my parents on the screen. My father was smiling as the woman signed. He looked so proud. Not proud of me, proud of the performance. He was watching the forgery happen with the satisfaction of a director watching a play. I realized then that this wasn't just about money. If it was just about money, they could have badgered me into signing. They could have guilt-tripped me. This was about erasure. They wanted a Daisy who didn't argue. They wanted a Daisy who sat still, kept her mouth shut, and signed where she was told. And since I wasn't that Daisy, they had built one. They had cast a role, costumed an actor, and written me out of the script of my own life. "They manufactured my absence," I said. The realization made me cold all over. "They told you I was unstable so you wouldn't believe me if I called. Then they brought her in to show you the good Daisy, the compliant Daisy. They weren't just taking the money, they were taking the name." "Identity theft is usually invisible," Javier said, his voice shaken. "It is numbers in a cloud. This is theatrical. It is psychopathic." "It is a performance," Tanya corrected. "And the curtain is about to come down." She stood up straight and tapped the screen. "Javier, print a still of that frame. High gloss, maximum contrast on the scar. Then print a still of Ms. Caldwell's face from the ID scan she gave us today, and take a photo of her actual wrists right now." "We are building a portfolio," Javier said, reaching for a digital camera that was kept in the secure drawer. "We are building a trap," Tanya said. "When the police get here, I don't want to just tell them it's a fraud. I want to show them the 2 daisies. I want to show them the scar." She looked out the blinds again. "They are still at the ATM," she reported. "My guess is the machine just ate their card. I flagged it to capture on the next attempt. They are going to be confused. Then they are going to be angry. And then, she turned back to me. Then they are going to come to the counter, and they are going to bring her with them. I looked at the scar on the screen one last time. That tiny white crescent. It was such a small thing, but it was the difference between me being a person and me being a file number in a guardianship hearing. That scar was my freedom. Let them come, I said. I want to see her face when she sees mine. You will, Tanya said, but stay out of sight. When they walk up to that counter, I want them to think they are in charge right up until the moment the handcuffs click. She picked up the phone again. Security, she said. Allow the customers at the ATM to proceed to the teller line. Do not intercept. I repeat, do not intercept. Let them walk into the trap. I sat back in the leather chair. Rolling my sleeve down over my unblemished wrist, I felt a strange, cold calm settling over me. The panic was gone. The shock was fading. All that was left was the clarity of the evidence. My parents had bet everything on the idea that I was weak, emotional, and easily erased. They had bet on the idea that their version of the story, the concerned parents, the sick daughter, was more powerful than the truth. But they had forgotten one thing. They had forgotten that the truth has details, it has timestamps, it has metadata, and it has scars. And I didn't have one. Tanya Whitaker did not use the phone on her desk to call the police. She used her personal cell phone. Stepping into the far corner of the glass office, her back turned to the blinds that separated us from the lobby. There were no sirens. There was no screeching of tires or flashing red and blue lights washing over the storefront. This was a financial institution in a high-end district, and the arrival of law enforcement was designed to be as discreet as the theft itself. 2 officers arrived 6 minutes later. They parked their cruiser around the back, near the employee entrance, and were escorted through the secure corridor that bypassed the main floor entirely. They did not burst in. They simply appeared in the doorway of Javier's office, 2 men in dark blue uniforms that absorbed the soft lighting of the room. They moved with a quiet, heavy authority, the kind that changes the air pressure in a small space. The lead officer was older, with a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite and then left out in the rain. His name tag read, Sergeant Miller. The younger one, Officer Byrne, held a digital tablet and looked ready to type. Ms. Whitaker, Sergeant Miller said, nodding to Tanya. He did not look at the window. He did not look at the computer screens. He looked at the room as a grid of potential threats and then settled his eyes on me. Is this the complainant? This is Daisy Caldwell, Tanya said. Her voice was stripped of all inflection. It was pure data. The primary account holder. She is currently disputing a fraudulent power of attorney and an active attempt to drain a trust fund valued at $480,000. Sergeant Miller turned to me. Ma'am, I need you to tell me exactly what is happening. In your own words. Start from the beginning. I took a breath. I could feel the adrenaline vibrating in my fingertips, a hum that wanted to turn into a shake, but I pressed my hands flat against the cool surface of Javier's desk. I remembered what Tanya had said. Do not be the crying daughter. Be the witness. Emotion is messy. Emotion is what my parents were counting on to prove I was unstable. Sequence is what survives scrutiny. At 8:45 this morning, I attempted to access my trust account via the mobile application, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, mechanical and detached. I received an access denied notification. I called my father, Robert Caldwell. He informed me that he and my mother, Catherine Caldwell, had assumed legal control of my assets due to my alleged incapacity. Officer Byrne was tapping rapidly on the tablet. I drove here immediately, I continued. Mr. Morales, the trust officer, showed me the documents used to seize control. They include a general durable power of attorney with a forged signature and a physician's capacity declaration from a doctor I have never met. The documents were faxed from my parents' home number. And the individuals in the lobby? Sergeant Miller asked. My parents, I said. And a woman I do not know. who was dressed in my clothing and wearing a mask. We have video evidence from yesterday showing this woman signing my name on bank documents. Sergeant Miller looked at Tanya. Tanya pointed to the screen where the freeze frame of the scar was still displayed. Identity theft, Tanya said. Forged instrument, wire fraud, and potentially conspiracy, given the third party involved. Sergeant Miller looked at the screen, then at my wrists. He didn't say anything, but his eyebrows lifted a fraction of an inch. He turned back to me. Ms. Caldwell, have you had any contact with your parents since you arrived at the bank? No, I said. They do not know I am here. I want you to send a text message to your father. Sergeant Miller said, Right now. Keep it neutral. Ask him why you cannot access your money. Do not mention the police. Do not mention the forgery. We need to see what he claims in writing. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. My thumb hovered over the screen. I opened the message thread with my father. The last text was from 3 weeks ago, asking if I was coming for Sunday dinner. I typed, Why am I locked out of my trust account? I hit send. The room went silent. We all watched the phone lying on the desk. The timestamp read 10:12 a.m. 30 seconds passed. Then 60. The 3 dots appeared. They danced, vanished, and danced again. He was typing. He was deleting. He was curating the narrative. The phone buzzed. Dad, we had to act. It's for your own good. We can't let you spiral anymore. Family first. Don't make this ugly. Daisy, we'll talk when you're calm. I stared at the words. Family first. It was a slogan he had used my whole life. He used it when he missed my school plays for work. He used it when he forced me to break up with a boyfriend he didn't like. And now, he was using it to justify grand larceny. He admits it, Officer Burns said, looking at the screen. He admits they took action. Screenshot that, Sergeant Miller ordered. Capture the timestamp. Capture the sender ID. That is an admission of involvement. He is not claiming it was a bank error. He is claiming justification. I took the screenshot. My hand was steady. Don't make this ugly. He had no idea how ugly it was about to get. Officers, Javier interrupted. His voice was tight. He was looking at his monitor again, scrolling through a secondary transaction log. I have new information. I thought we had caught everything with the main freeze, but I ran a query on the checking side of the relationship. What is it? Tanya asked, stepping closer to his desk. Test transfers, Javier said. Before they tried to move the main block of $465,000, they sent 2 smaller wires, one for $5,000, one for $10,000. Did they clear? I asked. Yes, Javier said. They went out yesterday afternoon, right after the power of attorney was signed. They were below the automatic fraud threshold for an account of this size. $15,000? Gone. That was my emergency fund. That was 6 months of rent. Where did it go? Sergeant Miller asked. Who is the recipient? Javier clicked a line item to expand the details. The recipient is a checking account at this institution, Javier said. Opened yesterday at 4:45 p.m. He turned the screen so the officers could see. Account title, Caldwell Household Operations Trust. Household Operations, I repeated. The banality of the name made me sick. It sounded like a line item for cleaning supplies or lawn care. They had turned my life into a household expense to be managed. Who are the signatories? Tanya asked. Robert Caldwell and Catherine Caldwell, Javier read. And Sloan Caldwell, my sister. So they opened a receiving account in the same branch where they hijacked the source account, Tanya said, shaking her head. They built the plumbing before they turned on the tap. This wasn't impulsive. This was an architectural plan to siphon the funds into an account they controlled completely. It establishes premeditation, Sergeant Miller noted. They didn't just panic and grab cash. They set up a shell entity to receive it. My phone buzzed again. Not a text this time. A system notification. I looked down. It was an alert from the United States Postal Service. I had signed up for informed delivery years ago, a service that scanned the exterior of my mail before it was delivered. But this wasn't a scan of an envelope. It was an account alert. Official change of address confirmation. I tapped it open. Your request to forward mail from my apartment address to my parents' address has been processed. Effective date: today. They changed my address, I said. I felt the blood drain from my face. Just now. I just got the confirmation. Tanya swore softly. It was the first time I had heard her break her professional veneer. Of course they did, she said. The hold on the money stopped the cash. But the power of attorney gives them access to profile settings. We froze the assets, but the administrative side had a lag. They are trying to intercept the paper notices. Why? Officer Byrne asked. If they control the account online, why do they care about the mail? Because of the court, Tanya said. She looked at me, and her eyes were fierce. Daisy, listen to me. This is the most dangerous part. They aren't just stealing the money. They are trying to make sure you never find out about the legal filing. What filing? I asked. The guardianship petition, Tanya said. If they file for emergency control in court, the court is required to send notice to the proposed ward. That is you. They send it by certified mail. If you don't receive that mail, you don't show up to the hearing. If you don't show up, the judge assumes you are either too incompetent to answer or that you have conceded. They get a default judgment. They are blinding me, I said. They are trying to make sure I don't even know I'm on trial until the verdict is read. Weaponized concern, Sergeant Miller said. They tell the neighbors they are taking care of your affairs, while they make sure you can't speak for yourself. He stood up straight and adjusted his belt. The calm in the room shifted. It was no longer the calm of a library. It was the calm of a storm front about to break. We have enough, Sergeant Miller said. We have the forged document. We have the admission text. We have the unauthorized transfers. We have the identity theft regarding the mail. And we have the suspects in the lobby. He looked at Tanya. Is the imposter still there? She is sitting in the waiting area, Tanya said. My teller just signaled that they are approaching the counter. They are going to try to override the ATM block in person. Okay, Sergeant Miller said. Here is how this goes. We are going to walk out there. We are going to separate them. Officer Byrne will take the parents. I will take the female suspect. Daisy, you stay here until I clear you. I want to see them, I said. I need them to know I did this. You will, Sergeant Miller said. But not yet. Let us secure the scene first. He turned to Javier. Print the transaction record for the $15,000. Print the account opening document for the household operations account. And print that screenshot of the text message. Javier hit print. The laser printer in the corner hummed to life, churning out the paper trail of my parents' betrayal. I looked at the text message one last time. Don't make this ugly. It was too late for that. They had made it ugly the moment they decided I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. They had made it ugly when they faxed a lie to a bank and dressed a stranger in my coat. I watched the officers move toward the door. They didn't draw their weapons, but they walked with a readiness that made my heart race. Wait, Tanya said. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a file. It was a red folder. This is the fraud packet, she said to Sergeant Miller. It includes the affidavit Daisy just signed. As soon as you detain them, this becomes the primary evidence. Do not let them talk their way out of it. They are charming. They are wealthy. They will try to make you feel like you are interrupting a family squabble. Ma'am, Sergeant Miller said, his hand resting on the door handle. I have been doing this for 20 years. I know the difference between a squabble and a felony. He opened the door. The sounds of the lobby drifted in. The low murmur of conversation, the click of heels on tile, the hum of commerce. I moved to the blinds again. I couldn't help it. I had to watch. I saw my father leaning against the counter, his posture relaxed, arrogant. I saw my mother standing next to him, adjusting her scarf. I saw the woman in the mask standing a few feet behind them, clutching a purse that wasn't hers. And then I saw the blue uniform step into the frame. My father turned. His smile didn't fade immediately. It stayed plastered on his face for a second. a reflex of his social training, before his brain registered that the police were not there to open an account. I saw Sergeant Miller say something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the color drain from my father's face. It didn't happen slowly. It happened all at once, like a light being switched off. My mother took a step back. She reached for my father's arm, her concerned mother mask slipping to reveal pure, unadulterated panic. And the woman in the chair? She stood up. She looked at the police. Then she looked at the door. For a second, I thought she was going to run, but Officer Byrne was already moving to block the exit. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another text. Dad. Why are the police here? Daisy. What did you do? I didn't reply. I just watched. I watched as the narrative they had built, the story of the sick daughter and the hero parents, crumbled under the weight of uniforms and paper trails. Javier, I said quietly, are those transfers frozen too? The 15,000? I am clawing them back right now, Javier said. I am marking them as proceeds of crime. They will bounce out of the household operations account before noon. Good, I said. In the lobby, Sergeant Miller was gesturing for my father to step away from the counter. My father was arguing. I could see his hands chopping the air. Family first, he was probably saying. This is a misunderstanding. But then Sergeant Miller pointed to the woman in the mask. He pointed to her wrist. My father stopped talking. He looked at the woman. He looked at the officer. And then, for the first time, he looked at the glass office where I was standing. He couldn't see me through the blinds. Not really. But he knew. He knew I was there. The text on my screen. What did you do? Felt like a joke. I didn't do anything. I just survived. The phone in my hand vibrated again. A short, sharp buzz that felt like a wasp sting against my palm. I looked down at the screen, expecting another plea from my father, another variation of family first, but this text was from my mother. Mom, if you keep fighting this and making a scene, we will have no choice but to tell the authorities you are unstable. We will file for emergency control immediately. Do not force us to do this. Go home. I read it twice. The first time, I felt the old, familiar conditioning kick in, the urge to shrink, to apologize, to avoid the conflict. My mother knew exactly where my buttons were because she had installed them, but the second time I read it, I didn't feel fear. I felt the cold, hard clarity of someone who realizes the gun pointed at them is loaded. Show me, Sergeant Miller said. He didn't ask nicely. He held out his hand with the expectation of compliance. I handed him the phone. He read the message without blinking, his face a mask of stone. Then he showed it to Tanya. That is not a warning, Tanya said, her voice low and dangerous. That is coercion. She is explicitly threatening to use the legal system to silence a fraud victim. It is extortion, Sergeant Miller corrected. She is leveraging a guardianship petition to compel Miss Caldwell to surrender her assets. Officer Byrne, log this as Exhibit C, screenshot it, timestamp it. Already done, Officer Byrne said, his fingers tapping rapidly on his tablet. They are not just trying to steal the money, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my legs. They are trying to gaslight the bank. They are setting up a narrative where I am the one causing the problem. We know, Tanya said. And now, we are going to go out there and break that narrative. But before Tanya could reach the door, the electronic chime of the main entrance rang out. It was a cheerful, melodic sound, ding-dong, that stood in stark contrast to the tension in the room. I froze. My parents were already in the lobby, standing near the teller line. So who was coming in? Open the blinds, I whispered. Just a crack. Tanya adjusted the slats. Through the gap, I saw the lobby floor. My parents were still there, but they had turned toward the door. My father's posture had shifted from defensive to aggressive. I am the legal guardian, my father shouted. His voice boomed through the quiet bank, bouncing off the marble floors and the high ceiling. I am demanding access to these funds for the welfare of my daughter. This hold is illegal. He wasn't talking to the teller anymore. He was talking to the room. I felt a chill slide down my spine. I had not told them I was coming to the branch. I had not told them which branch I was at. I had simply stopped answering their texts. "They know I'm here," I said. "They didn't just happen to be at the ATM. They knew I was inside." "Tracking," Sergeant Miller said grimly. "Is your location sharing on?" "No," I said. "I turned it off months ago." "Vehicle tracker," Officer Burns suggested. "Or they have a keylogger on your phone that pings your GPS." "It doesn't matter how," Tanya said, grabbing the door handle. "What matters is that they are here to create a spectacle. They want witnesses." She opened the door and stepped out, leaving it cracked just enough for me to hear. Sergeant Miller signaled for me to stay back, out of sight, but within earshot. He and Officer Byrne moved into the hallway, flanking the entrance to the lobby, waiting for the right moment to intervene. I pressed my ear against the gap in the doorframe. "Mr. Caldwell?" Tanya's voice rang out. It was professional, sharp, and loud enough to cut through my father's bluster. "I am Tanya Whitaker, the branch manager. You need to lower your voice." "I will not lower my voice," my father bellowed. "You are withholding funds that are necessary for my daughter's care. She is in a crisis. Do you understand? A medical crisis." "The account is under a mandatory fraud hold," Tanya stated. "There is a dispute regarding the validity of the power of attorney. No transactions will occur today, not $1. Dispute?" My mother's voice joined the fray. It wasn't the shrill voice she used with me. It was her public voice, trembling, tearful, designed to elicit sympathy from strangers. "Oh, God. Robert, she's done it. She's confused the bank. She's manic again." She turned to the woman standing in line behind her, an older lady clutching a checkbook. "I am so sorry," my mother said to the stranger, loud enough for the cameras to pick up. "Our daughter, she has these episodes. She thinks people are stealing from her. We are just trying to pay her rent so she doesn't get evicted. We're trying to protect her." The stranger looked sympathetic. She nodded, patting my mother's arm. "It's so hard," the woman murmured. "My nephew is the same way." I gripped the doorframe until my fingernails dug into the wood. They were doing it. They were planting witnesses. They were breadcrumbing the scene so that if this ever went to court, they could subpoena that little old lady, and she would testify that the parents were distraught and loving, and the daughter was the source of the chaos. It was social engineering in real time. "Ma'am," Tanya said, stepping between my mother and the customer, "please do not discuss private financial matters in the lobby. If you have documentation, we can review it in a private room." "We gave you the documentation," my father shouted. He waved the leather folio in the air like a weapon. "We gave you the power of attorney. We gave you the doctor's note. What more do you need? Blood?" "We need the principal," Tanya said. "The real principal." "She is not competent to speak," my father roared. "That is why we are here. Doctor, Thorne's letter clearly states—" "Sir," Sergeant Miller's voice cut through the noise like a thunderclap. The officers stepped out from the hallway. The sight of the uniforms sucked the air out of the room. The little old lady took a step back. The bank tellers stopped typing. My father turned to face the police. He didn't look scared. He looked indignant. He looked like a man who paid enough taxes to believe the police worked for him personally. Finally, my father said, "Officers, I want to file a complaint against this branch. They are obstructing a legal guardianship. We are not here for the bank." "Mr. Caldwell," Sergeant Miller said. He walked slowly toward the counter, his hand resting casually on his belt. "We are here because of a report of identity theft and fraud." "Fraud?" my mother gasped. She put a hand to her chest. "That is ridiculous. We are her parents." "We have video footage from yesterday," Tanya interjected. She pointed to the security camera dome on the ceiling. "Footage of a woman coming into this branch, claiming to be Daisy Caldwell, and signing legal documents." "That was Daisy!" my mother cried out. She gestured to the woman sitting in the chair, the woman in the mask and the wool coat. She's right here. She's sitting right there. She's having a bad day. She doesn't want to talk." "That is not Daisy Caldwell," Tanya said. "Of course it is," my father insisted. "She's wearing a mask because she's paranoid. She thinks the air is poisoned. That's part of her illness." I felt a surge of nausea. They were weaving my symptoms out of thin air, using the mask, a common item, to paint me as delusional. "Officer," my father said, "my daughter is sitting right there. She is fragile. Please do not harass her." Sergeant Miller turned his gaze to the woman in the chair, the imposter. She hadn't moved. She was sitting with her hands folded in her lap, looking at the floor. "Ma'am," Sergeant Miller said. "Stand up." The woman hesitated. She looked at my father. He gave her a sharp nod. She stood up. She was the same height as me. She had my coat. She had my hair color. From the back, even I might have been fooled. "Remove the mask," Sergeant Miller said. "She can't," my mother shrieked. "She's afraid of germs. You'll traumatize her." "Ma'am, remove the mask and the sunglasses," Sergeant Miller repeated. His voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't optional. "I need to verify your identity." The woman reached up. Her hands were shaking, not the fake shake of an actor this time. Real fear. She pulled the sunglasses off. Then she unhooked the loops of the blue mask. I leaned forward, trying to see through the crack in the blinds. The face that was revealed was pale. Her eyes were wide and terrified. Her lips were pressed together in a thin line. It wasn't a stranger. It was Sloane, my sister. I gasped. The sound involuntary. I knew it, logically. I had known it since the text message. I had known it since the household operations account. But seeing her there, dressed in my clothes, standing next to the parents who were trying to erase me, it broke something inside me that I didn't think could break any further. Sloane looked different. She looked older. Her makeup was done to mimic mine. Minimal, neutral tones. She had even drawn on a fake mole near her lip. A mirror image of the one on my cheek. "State your name," Sergeant Miller said. Sloane looked at our parents. My mother was staring at her with a look of intense pressure, a look that said, "Stick to the script." "Daisy," Sloane whispered. "I'm Daisy Caldwell." "Speak up," Officer Burns said. "I'm Daisy Caldwell," she said, louder this time, but her voice cracked. It didn't sound like me. It sounded like a scared little girl trying to lie to a teacher. "Do you have identification?" Sergeant Miller asked. I left it in the car," Sloane stammered. "My dad has my papers." "We have her passport right here," my father interjected, reaching into his folio. "She doesn't carry a wallet. She loses them." "Stop," Tanya said. She walked out from behind the counter. She was holding the photo of the scar that Javier had printed. "Officers," Tanya said, "the woman who signed the papers yesterday has a distinct crescent-shaped scar on her right wrist. We have it on high-definition video." She held the photo up for the lobby to see. "Ma'am," Tanya said to Sloane, "roll up your right sleeve." Sloane froze. She grabbed her right wrist with her left hand. Covering it, it was a reflexive gesture, an admission of guilt written in body language. "I don't have to do that," Sloane snapped. Her tone shifted. The fragile Daisy act dropped, replaced by the petulant, entitled Sloane I had grown up with. "You're violating my privacy." "If you are Daisy Caldwell," Sergeant Miller said, "and Daisy Caldwell has no scar, then showing us your arm should clear this whole thing up, unless you do have a scar. Or unless," Tanya added, "you are Sloane Caldwell, mimicking your sister to facilitate grand larceny." The name hung in the air. Sloane. My mother gasped again, but this time it sounded forced. "How dare you! This is harassment." "Show us the wrist," Sergeant Miller said. He took a step closer. Sloane looked at the door. She looked at our father. He wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at the officer, his mind clearly racing, trying to calculate a new angle, a new lie. He was ready to cut her loose to save himself. I could see it in his eyes. Sloane saw it too. She pulled her arm back, clutching it to her chest. "I want a lawyer," she hissed. "You're going to need one," Sergeant Miller said. I couldn't stay in the office anymore. The anger was rising up in my throat like bile. They were doing it. They were turning this into a legal circus. My mother was still performing for the old lady in line, shaking her head and weeping silently, as if the police were the villains. I pushed the office door open. The sound of the latch clicking was small, but in the silence of the standoff, it sounded like a gunshot. Heads turned. I stepped out into the lobby. I was wearing my jeans and my hoodie. My hair was messy. I wasn't wearing a mask. I wasn't wearing sunglasses. I walked past Tanya. I walked past the officers. I stopped 10 feet away from my family. The resemblance was striking. Sloan and I shared the same nose, the same jawline, but standing there, side by side, the difference was obvious. She was the copy. I was the original. Hello, Sloan, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Sloan flinched. She looked at me with a mixture of shame and fury. My mother stopped crying instantly. Her face went blank, then hardened into a look of pure hatred. Daisy, my father said. His voice was smooth, pivoting instantly to the new reality. Thank God you're here. We were so worried. We were told you were missing. You weren't worried, I said. You were banking. I held up my right arm. I rolled up the sleeve of my hoodie. I turned my wrist over. The skin was smooth, unmarked. No scar, I said to the room. I looked at the old lady in line. I looked at the tellers. My name is Daisy Caldwell. That is my sister. And those are my parents. And they just tried to steal $480,000 from me. She's having an episode, my mother shouted, pointing at me. She's hallucinating. She thinks we're stealing. Officer, grab her. She's a danger to herself. Enough, Sergeant Miller barked. He turned to my father. Sir, you are detained. Ma'am, you too. And you? He pointed to Sloan. You are under arrest for criminal impersonation. You can't arrest us, my father sputtered. We are the legal guardians. We have the papers. The papers are fake, I said, and I'm pressing charges. Daisy, my mother hissed, her voice dropping to that venomous whisper. If you do this, if you let them put handcuffs on us, we will ruin you. We will tell the court everything. We will tell them about the summer of 2018. We will tell them about the pills. I stared at her. The summer of 2018. The time I had suffered from mild depression after a breakup and had taken antidepressants for 3 months. That was their ammunition. That was their big secret. Tell them, I said. Tell them I was sad once. Tell them I went to therapy. I don't care. I looked at Tanya. I am not unstable, I said. I am just done. Officers, Tanya said. Execute the warrant. Officer Byrne reached for the handcuffs on his belt. The metallic clink was the loudest sound in the world. My father's face went purple. This is a mistake. You will hear from my attorney. I look forward to it, Sergeant Miller said. He grabbed my father's arm and spun him around, as the cuffs clicked onto my father's wrists. My mother let out a wail that was pure theater. She collapsed into the nearest chair, not fainting, but staging a faint, but nobody moved to help her. The audience had shifted. The old lady in line wasn't looking at her with sympathy anymore. She was looking at her with disgust. The narrative had broken. Sloan was crying for real now. Dad told me to do it, she sobbed, as Officer Byron cuffed her. He said it was the only way to save the money. Daisy, tell them I didn't mean it. I looked at my sister. The sister who had texted me, "Don't embarrass the family while wearing my face and stealing my future." You meant it, I said. You practiced my signature. You didn't just help. You auditioned. I turned my back on them as the police began to read them their rights. I walked back toward the glass office. I didn't want to watch them be dragged out. I didn't need to see the end of the show. I just needed to make sure the bank account was safe. Because now, I was going to need every penny for the war that was coming. Back in the glass-walled office, the air felt different. The physical chaos of the lobby, the shouting, the feigned fainting spells, the metallic click of handcuffs was muffled now. reduced to a low-frequency hum behind the closed door. Inside, the atmosphere was sterile and cold, vibrating with a different kind of violence, the violence of forensic truth. Javier Morales sat at his desk, his hands clasped in front of a speakerphone that looked like a sleek, black flying saucer. He didn't look at me. He looked at the device, waiting for the oracle to speak. Tanya stood by the window, her back to the lobby, watching the reflection of the blue lights that were now silently pulsing against the storefront glass. "Connecting to Trust Compliance," Javier said. "This is Marisol Grant. She is the Regional Director of Digital Investigations. She does not deal in customer service. She deals in binary." The phone chirped once, a sharp digital sound that cut through the silence. "Morales," a voice said. It was a woman's voice, but it had no texture, no warmth, no inflection. It was the voice of a surgeon asking for a scalpel. "I have the packet you flagged on the Caldwell Trust. Case number 99, Charlie Whiskey, 2026, Alpha. I am looking at the upload architecture now." "We have law enforcement on site," Javier said, leaning toward the speaker. "We have the suspects detained. We need confirmation on the document origin. The principal is here contesting the signature." "I don't need the principal to contest it," Marisol said. Her voice crackled with static-free clarity. "The file contests itself. I am looking at the PDF structure of the power of attorney document uploaded at 8:05 this morning. It purports to be a scanned legal instrument from a firm, correct?" "That is what the cover sheet claims," Javier said. "Law offices of Henderson and Associates." "It is a lie," Marisol said. The document was not scanned from a physical paper source into a networked copier, which is standard for law firms. The metadata tags indicate this file was generated natively from a word processing template and then converted to PDF. It never existed on paper until you printed it just now. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. "What does that mean?" I asked, stepping closer to the desk. "Who is that?" Marisol asked. "Daisy Caldwell," Tanya said. "The victim, Ms. Caldwell," Marisol said, acknowledging me with the clinical detachment of a coroner. "It means the document was created on a home computer. Someone downloaded a generic fill-in-the-blank legal form, typed in the clauses, pasted in a digital image of a notary stamp, and saved it. It is a digital collage." "A cut-and-paste job. Can you trace the source?" Sergeant Miller asked. He had stepped back into the office, leaving his partner to manage the detention in the lobby. He was taking notes in a small, spiral-bound notebook. "I already have," Marisol said. "PDFs are chatty little things if you know how to listen to them. When a file is converted, it stamps the author's device name into the hidden properties. Usually, people scrub this. Amateurs do not." She paused. The silence on the line was heavy. "Read the tag," Tanya said. "The creator tag is listed as—" Marisol paused to spell it out. "SLOANEHOMELAPTOP, Sloan Home. Home laptop, operating system Windows 11, license registered to Sloan Marie Caldwell." The name hung in the air like smoke. Sloan. I closed my eyes. I had known she was the impersonator. I had seen her in the lobby wearing my coat. But hearing that tag was different. It meant she hadn't just been bullied into wearing a mask and sitting in a chair. She hadn't just been a prop. She was the architect. She had sat at her desk, probably the same desk where she did her homework, the same desk where she FaceTimed me to complain about her boyfriends, and she had downloaded a template. She had typed my name. She had typed incapacitated. She had dragged and dropped the fake notary stamp. She had saved the file. "She wrote it," I whispered. "She didn't just sign it. She wrote the whole thing." "There is more," Marisol continued, oblivious to the emotional crater she had just opened. I ran a cross-reference on the device fingerprint. The unique hardware ID of that laptop matches a device that has accessed our online banking system before. "When?" Javier asked. 6 months ago, Marisol said. "And 12 months ago, it was used to upload tuition verification documents for a student checking account." The email address associated with those logins is sloancaldwell98@gmail.com. Sergeant Miller stopped writing. He tapped the page with his pen. That links the forgery tool directly to the suspect's personal history. It breaks the "I didn't know" defense. It breaks the "Dad made me do it" defense. You don't accidentally draft a 20-page legal document on your own laptop. Exactly, Marisol said. This was a premeditated workflow. The edits show the document was opened and revised 14 times over the last 3 days. They were refining the language. They were practicing. Thank you, Marisol, Tanya said. Package that report. Send it to the sergeant's secure email. Sending now? Marisol said. Terminating connection. The line went dead. Sergeant Miller looked at me. Your sister is claiming she was just a pawn. She's out there crying, saying your father forced her to wear the clothes. But pawns don't spend 3 days editing legal clauses. She wanted the money, I said, my voice hollow. She has student loans. She wants a new car. She always said it wasn't fair that Grandma left the bulk of the trust to me just because I was the oldest. Well, Sergeant Miller said, closing his notebook, she just bought herself a felony instead of a car. He opened the door to the lobby. I'm going to have a conversation with her, Ms. Caldwell. You might want to hear this, but stay in the doorway. I followed him. I felt numb. The anger was gone, replaced by a profound, exhausting sadness. In the lobby, the scene had settled into a grim tableau. My parents were seated on a bench near the wall, handcuffed, looking furious and small. My father was whispering to my mother, probably rehearsing their next lie. Sloane was sitting apart from them, on the edge of a teller station, her hands cuffed behind her back. Her mascara was running. She looked young and pathetic, the very picture of a corrupted innocent. Officer, Sloane sniffled as Sergeant Miller approached. Please, I didn't know what I was signing. I just did what they told me. I thought it was just paperwork for the house. Sergeant Miller stopped in front of her. He didn't yell. He didn't intimidate. He just looked at her with the weary patience of a man who has heard every lie ever invented. Sloane, he said. We just spoke to the digital forensics team. Sloane blinked. What? We know about the laptop, Sergeant Miller said. Sloane's face went still. The tears stopped instantly, as if a faucet had been turned off. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Her voice was too loud. It bounced off the marble walls. I don't use a laptop. I use an iPad. The document was created on a device named Sloane Home Laptop, Sergeant Miller said. It was edited 14 times over 3 days. The device is registered to you. The IP address traces to your apartment, not your parents' house. Sloane's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at our parents. They weren't looking at her. They were looking at the floor, distancing themselves from the sinking ship. You drafted the power of attorney, didn't you, Sloane? Sergeant Miller asked. You found the template. You made the PDF look real. Your dad might have had the idea, but you did the work. No, Sloane shouted. That's a lie. Someone must have hacked me. Daisy probably did it. She's the tech one. She's setting me up. I stepped out of the office then. I couldn't help it. I didn't set you up, Sloane, I said quietly. I was drinking coffee and trying to pay a bill. You were the one drafting my legal death warrant. Sloane glared at me. You always get everything. You get the trust. You get the apartment. You think you're so perfect. And the scar? Sergeant Miller interrupted, cutting off her tirade. Sloane froze. What? The scar on your wrist, Sergeant Miller said. The one we saw on the video. The one that proves you were the person signing the papers yesterday. Sloane reflexively pulled her right arm tight against her side, jamming her wrist into the fabric of her coat, trying to hide it behind her back where her hands were cuffed. It was an instinctive, animal movement, the body trying to hide its wounds. I don't have a scar, she muttered, looking at her shoes. Then why are you hiding your arm? Sergeant Miller asked. If you don't have a scar, show us. Prove us wrong. Make us look like idiots. Sloane didn't move. She couldn't. She was trapped by her own biology. That's what I thought, Sergeant Miller said. He turned to Officer Byrne. Add a count of forgery to her processing sheet, and secure that laptop as soon as we get a warrant for her apartment. It's the smoking gun. I looked at my sister. She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at the wall, her face twisting into a mask of bitter defeat. She wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she got caught. She had spent 3 days refining a document to steal my life, and she had probably justified it to herself every step of the way. Daisy doesn't need it. Daisy is selfish. I deserve this. I turned away. I couldn't look at her. It hurt too much. Tanya was standing next to me. She placed a hand on my shoulder. It wasn't a comforting touch, exactly. It was a stabilizing one. Daisy, she said softly, listen to me. This part is over. The police have them. But you need to think about tomorrow. Tomorrow? I asked, wiping my eyes. The guardianship, Tanya said. The emergency filing your mother threatened. This evidence package, the metadata, the laptop trace, the video of the scar. This is your shield. She pulled me back toward the office, away from the spectacle of my family being read their rights. If they file for emergency control, Tanya explained, her voice low and urgent, they will rely on subjective claims. They will say you are acting strange. They will say you are spending erratically. They will bring in character witnesses. And I'll lose, I said, because they are charming and I am quiet. No, Tanya said, you will win, because courts love objective data. They can argue about your mental state all day, but they cannot argue with a device fingerprint. They cannot argue with a time-stamped metadata tag that proves your sister forged the application. This report from Marisol proves that the entire premise of their petition, your incapacity, was a manufactured lie created on a Windows 11 laptop 3 days ago. It proves malice, Javier added, stepping out to join us. It proves conspiracy. No judge in this state will grant guardianship to people who are actively being prosecuted for defrauding the ward. So what do I do? I asked. You take this packet, Tanya said, handing me a thick envelope containing the printouts, and you walk into that court before they do. You don't wait to be sued. You file for a protective order. You file for a restraining order against their financial access. You use this evidence to nuke their credibility before they even open their mouths. I took the envelope. It felt heavy. It contained the proof of my sister's betrayal, my father's greed, and my mother's manipulation. It was a dossier of my family's destruction. The proof doesn't care about feelings, Tanya said, echoing the title of the moment. It just is. And right now, it is the only family you have. I looked through the glass one last time. Officer Byrne was leading my father out the back door toward the cruiser. My mother was following, still weeping, but looking back over her shoulder, checking if anyone was watching her performance. Sloane was last, head down, defeated by her own laptop. You're right, I said to Tanya. It's objective. It's clean. It's over, Tanya said. Not yet, I said. They still have keys to my apartment. They still have my cat. They still have my birth certificate in their safe. Then we change the locks, Tanya said. And we get a court order for the safe. I clutched the envelope to my chest. Can I ask you something? I asked Tanya. Anything. Did you know? I asked. When I first walked in here, did you know I was telling the truth? Tanya looked at me. Her gray eyes softened just a fraction. I work in trust compliance. Daisy, she said. I see people lie about money every day. They lie to get it. They lie to keep it. But there is a specific look on the face of someone who has just realized they have been erased. She paused. You didn't look greedy, she said. You looked lonely. That's how I knew. I nodded. Lonely was the word. I was an orphan now. A solvent. Legally protected orphan with $480,000 and a folder full of evidence. But an orphan nonetheless. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me, Tanya said, turning back to her desk. Thank the metadata. And thank your sister for being too cheap to buy a burner laptop. She picked up her phone. Now, she said, let's call that lawyer. We have a filing to prepare. I watched her dial. I looked down at the case number on the sticky note in my hand. 99-CW-2026-Alpha. That was my new identity. Not daughter, not sister, just the principal. And for the first time all day, that felt like enough. I sat in Javier's office, the leather chair feeling like the cockpit of a fighter jet that had just landed after a dogfight. The adrenaline was starting to curdle into a dull, rhythmic ache behind my eyes. The lobby was quiet now. The blue lights had faded, and the silence that filled the bank was heavy with the ghost of the scene that had just played out. My parents were gone. My sister was gone. But the war, I knew, was simply moving to a new front. Tanya Whitaker did not let the silence linger. She handed me her desk phone, the receiver feeling heavy and cool in my hand. Call your lawyer, she said. Not a family friend, the shark. I dialed the number for Noah Vance. Noah wasn't a partner at a white shoe firm with a view of the lake. He ran a boutique practice called Vance & Associates that specialized in aggressive litigation. We had gone to college together, and he was the only person I knew who viewed a lawsuit as a form of contact sport. He answered on the second ring. Vance, he said. His voice clipped. Noah, it's Daisy, I said. I am at the First National Branch on State Street. The police just arrested my parents and my sister for fraud, identity theft, and forgery. There was a pause on the line, a long, heavy pause. Start from the beginning, Noah said. And do not give me the emotional version. Give me the timeline. I gave it to him. I told him about the access denied banner at 8:45. I told him about the fax from the home number. I told him about the metadata on Sloane's laptop and the scar on her wrist that didn't exist on mine. I told him about the household operations account and the test transfers. Okay, Noah said. I could hear the scratching of a pen on paper. Listen to me very carefully. Daisy, you are currently in the eye of the storm. You think the arrest is the end, but it is not. It is an escalation. They are in handcuffs. Noah, I said. How can they escalate? Because they are narcissists losing control, Noah said, his voice hard. And because the legal system has loopholes the size of a truck, they will make bail. It might take a few hours, maybe overnight. But they will be out, and the moment they are out, they will try to spin this. They will say the arrest was a misunderstanding caused by your mental instability. They will say you caused a scene and confused the police. They already tried that, I said. It didn't work. It didn't work with the cops, Noah corrected. But it might work with a probate judge who doesn't have the police report yet. Daisy, you need to stop debating with them in your head and start documenting. We need to build a firewall before they get to a judge. What do I do? I asked. You need a court order limiting fraudulent filings, Noah said. We are going to file an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order regarding your finances and your person, but more importantly, we are going to preempt their emergency guardianship attempt. How? Evidence, Noah said. I need everything you have. I need the footage. I need the audit trails. I need the metadata report on Sloane's laptop. I need the text messages where your father admitted they had to act. We are going to package that into an affidavit and file it with the court clerk within the hour. We are going to flag your name in the system so that if any petition is filed regarding Daisy Caldwell, the clerk sees our objection first. I looked at Tanya and Javier. They were watching me, waiting for instructions. Noah wants the package, I said to them. Everything, the video, the logs, the metadata. Authorize it, Noah said. Put me on speaker. I hit the speaker button. You're on with Tanya Whitaker, the branch manager, and Javier Morales, the trust officer. This is Noah Vance, attorney for Ms. Caldwell, Noah said. I am formally requesting that First National Bank preserve and transmit the full evidentiary package regarding this fraud attempt to my secure server. I also want a copy sent directly to the district attorney's office to ensure it is attached to the criminal complaint. We can do that, Tanya said. Ms. Caldwell, I need you to sign a release of information form. It authorizes us to share internal security data with your counsel. She slid a paper across the desk. I signed it without hesitation. The sharp D, the trailing Y. Done, Tanya said. Javier is initiating the transfer now. It includes the IP logs, the device fingerprinting from the imposter's laptop, and the high-definition stills of the wrist scar. Good, Noah said. Now, Tanya, I want to talk about account security. My client is vulnerable. Her parents know her social security number. They know her mother's maiden name. They know the name of her first pet. Standard security questions are useless here. Way ahead of you, Tanya said. She moved to her terminal, her fingers flying across the keys. I am implementing a level 4 lockdown on the trust and all associated accounts. Explain, Noah said. First, Tanya said, I am removing all remote access capabilities for the next 7 days. No online banking, no wire transfers via phone, in-person verification only. Agreed, Noah said. Second, Tanya continued, I am setting up a verbal duress passphrase. Even if someone comes in with a valid ID that looks like Daisy, or even if Daisy herself comes in, no transaction will proceed unless the passphrase is spoken first. If the passphrase is not given, or if the wrong one is given, we assume coercion and call the police immediately. She looked at me. Daisy, pick a phrase, something random, something your parents would never guess, not a favorite color, not a song lyric. I thought for a moment. I looked at the red folder on the desk. I looked at the blinds. Blue titanium, I said. Blue titanium, Tanya repeated, typing it in. It is set. And finally, Mr. Vance, I am adding a standing compliance rule. No power of attorney, no guardianship order, and no third-party authorization will be accepted on this account without a review by independent outside counsel and a mandatory 72-hour cooling-off period. That is the poison pill, Noah said, sounding satisfied. Excellent. If they try to force a judge's order on you, the bank will automatically stall it long enough for me to get into court and fight it. The package is sent, Javier announced. You should have the download link in your inbox. Mr. Vance. Got it, Noah said. Now, Daisy, I have one more instruction for you, and this one is going to feel risky, but it is necessary. What is it? I asked. I need you to bait them, Noah said. They are in custody, I said. They can't talk to me. They might have their phones still, Noah said. Or they might get one phone call. Or, if I know people like your parents, they have a lawyer meeting them at the precinct who will let them send a message. I need you to send one final text to the family group chat. Why? I asked. I don't want to talk to them. Because I need to prove coercion, Noah said. I have the fraud. I have the theft. But to nail the protective order and stop the guardianship permanently, I need to prove that their primary motivation is not care, but control. I need them to threaten you one more time, on the record, after they have been caught. What do I say? I asked. Keep it simple, Noah said. Tell them you are not signing anything and that the bank has the footage. Then wait. I looked at the phone in my hand. It felt like a grenade. Do it, Noah said. Then take a screenshot and send it to me, and then go home and lock your door. I hung up the phone. The office was quiet. Tanya nodded at me. Do it, she said. I opened the messaging app. I opened the group chat titled Caldwell Family. The last message was from my father. What did you do? I typed, Stop. I am not signing anything. The bank has the footage of Sloan. I know everything. I hit send. The timestamp read 10:45 a.m. I stared at the screen. My heart was hammering against my ribs again. I pictured them in the back of the police cruiser, or maybe sitting in a holding cell. Did they have their phones? Would the police have taken them yet? 2 minutes passed. Then, a bubble appeared. It was my mother. Of course it was her. She was the operator. She was the one who managed the communications while my father managed the money. Mom. Daisy, honey, please listen. We are so worried about you. The police are confused because you are confused. We are just trying to help you. If you don't drop these charges and tell them it was a misunderstanding, we will have to tell the court about your episodes. We will have to file for emergency control to get you the help you need. Don't make us do this. We love you. I read it out loud. My voice shook slightly. That is it, Tanya said. That is the smoking gun. It is a threat disguised as a hug, Javier said, disgust evident in his voice. She is saying, do what we want, or we will label you crazy. She is threatening to weaponize the legal system to cover up a crime. Tanya said, and she put it in writing. I took the screenshot. I sent it to Noah. My phone buzzed with a reply from Noah almost instantly. Noah. Got it. This is perfect. It proves they are using the guardianship petition as leverage to evade criminal prosecution. That is witness tampering. That is extortion. I am adding it to the filing now. I put the phone down. I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It wasn't relief, exactly. It was heavier than that. It was the feeling of armor settling onto my shoulders. You realize their weakness, Tanya said, watching me. You realize they can't help themselves. They can't resist control, I said. Even when they are caught, they have to try to manage the outcome. They have to try to spin the story. They couldn't just stay silent and wait for a lawyer. They had to try to manipulate me one last time. And that is why they will lose, Tanya said. Because they think you are playing a game of emotions, where they can guilt you into submission, but you are playing a game of evidence. Paper, I said. Timing and public concern. Exactly, Tanya said. Sergeant Miller walked back into the office. He looked tired but satisfied. They are in transport, he said. We have the laptop secured from the imposter's bag. We have the fake ID. We have the text messages. Ms. Caldwell. I strongly suggest you file a separate report for identity fraud and coercion at the precinct near your home. We will cross-reference it with this bank case. But you want a paper trail in your own district. I will, I said. My lawyer is filing for a protective order right now. Good, Sergeant Miller said. And change your locks. Today, before you do anything else. I have a locksmith on speed dial, Javier offered. I can call him for you. He can meet you at your apartment in 30 minutes. Please, I said. Javier made the call. I stood up. My legs felt steady. Ms. Caldwell, Tanya said, you handled this remarkably well. I didn't feel remarkable, I said. I felt terrified. That is what courage is, Tanya said. Terrified action. She handed me the red folder with the case number written on it. This is your copy of the affidavit, she said. Keep it with you. If anyone, police, family, process servers, approaches you, you show them this. You tell them to call the fraud unit at First National Bank. You tell them the account is locked by the order of the Trust Compliance Office. Thank you, I said. For believing me. For the footage. We protect the assets, Tanya said, her face returning to its professional mask, though her eyes remained kind. And today, the asset was you. I walked out of the glass office. I walked through the lobby. It was empty now, save for a few customers speaking in hushed tones near the tellers. The air still felt charged, but the threat was gone. My parents were not at the counter. My sister was not in the chair. I pushed open the heavy glass doors and stepped out onto State Street. The city noise hit me. A wall of traffic. Sirens in the distance. The chatter of pedestrians. It was a Tuesday morning. The sun was shining. People were buying coffee. People were going to work. To them, it was just another day. To me, it was the first day of my life. I checked my phone one last time. A notification from the court clerk's office, forwarded by Noah. Notice of appearance and objection to guardianship filed. Matter: Daisy Ann Caldwell. Status: flag active. I put the phone in my pocket. I buttoned my coat. I wasn't just Daisy Caldwell, the graphic designer, the dutiful daughter, the compliant sister. I was case number 99, Charlie Whiskey, 2026 Alpha. I was a fortress of metadata and affidavits. My parents had spent my whole life telling me I was weak, that I needed them, that I couldn't manage on my own. They had built a story of my incompetence brick by brick, but today, I had taken a sledgehammer to that story. I had proven that when the pressure was on. I didn't break. I documented. I verified. I survived. I hailed a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Home," I said. And then to the locksmith. I settled back into the seat. I wasn't soothed. My heart was still racing, and I knew the grief would come later. The grief of losing my family, not to death, but to their own greed. But I wasn't afraid. I was armored, and for the first time in 34 years, the access to my life belonged to me, and me alone. The sun came up on Wednesday morning, and for the first time in my life, the light hitting my kitchen floor didn't feel like an interrogation. It felt like clarity. I had spent the night in my apartment with the new locks bolted tight, my phone on silent, and my cat sleeping on my chest. I hadn't slept much, but I wasn't tired. I was vibrating with the strange, high-frequency energy of someone who has just walked away from a car crash without a scratch. At 7:15 in the morning. My phone buzzed. It was Noah Vance. I picked it up on the first ring. "Did they do it?" I asked. I didn't say hello. We were past hello. "They did," Noah said, his voice crisp and victorious. At 8:01 this morning, right when the clerk's office opened, an attorney representing your parents filed an emergency ex parte petition for temporary guardianship of your estate and person. They used the exact same narrative we expected. They claimed you were suffering from an acute psychotic break, that you had caused a public disturbance at the bank, and that you were a danger to your own financial solvency. "They really didn't stop," I said, shaking my head. "Even after being arrested, even after the handcuffs. Narcissists don't stop until they hit a wall," Noah said. "But we built a wall. Because I had already flagged your name in the system. The clerk didn't route their petition to a rubber-stamp judge. She routed it to the presiding judge of the probate division. Along with our supplemental packet. And, I asked. I held my breath. This was the moment. If the judge believed them, the arrest wouldn't matter. They would get control. And they would use my money to hire criminal defense lawyers to fight the fraud charges. And, Noah said, allowing a rare note of satisfaction to creep into his voice. The judge read our affidavit. She looked at the police incident number. She looked at the metadata report from Marisol Grant regarding the forged power of attorney. And then she looked at the text message your mother sent you, the one threatening to file this exact petition if you didn't drop the charges. What did she rule? Denied, Noah said. Not just denied, but denied with a citation for potential abuse of process. The judge stated that the conflicting evidence, specifically the proof of identity theft and coercion, made it impossible to grant emergency control. She issued a temporary order freezing the status quo, meaning you remain in full control, and she set a hearing for next month to determine if your parents should be sanctioned for filing a frivolous petition. I let out a breath that felt like it had been stuck in my lungs since childhood. So they can't touch the money, I said. They can't touch anything, Noah confirmed. They are currently dealing with arraignment on the criminal charges, and now their civil strategy has blown up in their faces. They are fighting a war on two fronts, and they are losing on both. I hung up the phone and made coffee. It tasted better than any coffee I'd ever had, but the victory wasn't just in the courtroom, it was in the details. By noon, Sergeant Miller called me with an update on the financial investigation. The police had followed the money trail from the household operations account that Javier had flagged. It wasn't just a holding tank, Sergeant Miller explained. We subpoenaed the account opening documents. Your father listed himself as the primary trustee, but he listed the purpose of account as medical management. He was literally setting up a fund to pay for your institutionalization before you were even sick. He was going to use my own money to lock me away, I said. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was efficient. It was corporate. And the notary, Sergeant Miller continued. We tracked down the notary whose stamp was on the power of attorney, a Mr. Henderson. Turns out, he is a golf buddy of your father's. But here's the twist. He didn't sign it. He didn't? No. He swears he wasn't there. We checked his logbook, which is a legal requirement for every notarization. There is no entry for you. There is no entry for your parents on that date. But he admitted that he leaves his stamp in his unlocked desk drawer at his office, and your father visited him for lunch 3 days ago. Your father didn't just ask a friend for a favor. He stole the physical stamp, stamped a blank page, and then put it back, or he took a photo of it. We are treating it as notary fraud and theft of a professional seal. So he betrayed his friend, too, I said. He burns everyone. Everyone, Sergeant Miller agreed. But the biggest crack in the dam is your sister. Sloane, I said. Did she talk? She didn't want to, Sergeant Miller said. She tried to play the scared little sister card for about an hour. She kept saying she just did what she was told. But then, we put the laptop evidence in front of her. We showed her the 14 rounds of edits on the power of attorney document. We showed her the search history for how to fake a capacity declaration found on her browser. That is pretty damning, I said. It is, Miller said. But then we asked her where she got the template for the medical letter, and she snapped. She didn't confess to save her soul. She confessed to save her skin. She told us, I didn't write the medical jargon. Mom emailed me the text. She copied it from a forum for parents of troubled teens and told me to paste it onto the letterhead. My mother, the woman who claimed she was protecting me, she had copy-pasted my diagnosis from an internet forum and emailed it to my sister to forge. It was so banal, it was almost funny. So Sloane gave up Mom, I said. She gave us the email chain, Miller corrected, which constitutes conspiracy. We are upgrading the charges against your mother to include manufacturing evidence. Sloane is trying to cut a deal for a lesser sentence, maybe probation, but she gave us everything we needed to bury your parents. I thanked him and hung up. I sat on my couch, looking at the blank wall. I waited to feel guilty. I waited for that old, conditioned voice to tell me I was a bad daughter for letting this happen, but it didn't come. All I felt was a quiet, sturdy resolve. Around 4 p.m, my phone rang again. It wasn't a number I recognized, probably a burner phone or a lawyer's office line. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the notification popped up. Voicemail from unknown. I pressed play. Daisy, my father's voice filled the room. He sounded tired. He sounded old. But mostly, he sounded like he was trying to sell me something. Daisy, please pick up. This has all gone too far. The police, the lawyers. It's a mess. Your mother is sick with worry. Sloane is hysterical. We need to have a family meeting, just the 4 of us. No outsiders. We can fix this. We can explain everything. We were just trying to protect the legacy. Please. Honey, call me back. Family first. Family first. The phrase that used to make me feel safe now sounded like a threat. It sounded like silence first, obedience first. I didn't delete the voicemail. I didn't cry. I tapped the share icon and sent the audio file directly to Noah Vance. Then I typed a text to Noah. Received contact from adverse party. Please handle. I blocked the number. I didn't respond. I didn't negotiate. I routed it through counsel. That was the new rule. If they wanted to speak to me, they could speak to the law. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place at 5 o'clock. I received an email from Tanya Whitaker at the bank. Subject: Account Security Update. Permanent Protocols. Dear Ms. Caldwell, per our discussion and the advice of your counsel, the following permanent restrictions have been hard-coded into your trust account profile. 1. No changes to the beneficiary. Agent or trustee status can be made without your physical presence in the branch. Verified by government ID and biometric scan. 2. Any request for power of attorney status requires a review by independent outside counsel and a mandatory 7-day waiting period. 3. The household operations account has been closed, and the $15,000 in unauthorized transfers has been recovered and returned to your principal balance. 4. Your parents, Robert and Catherine Caldwell, and your sister, Sloane Caldwell, have been permanently blacklisted from all banking services at this institution. We are here to protect your future. Thank you for trusting us. Sincerely, Tanya Whitaker, Branch Manager. I read the email twice. Blacklisted. It was a harsh word, but it was the only language my parents understood. Consequences. Real, tangible consequences that couldn't be charmed away or shouted down. I stood up and walked to my computer. I opened my browser. I went to the bank's website. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for 24 hours. This simple act had been a source of terror. The red banner. The access denied. The feeling that I had been locked out of my own existence. I typed in my username. I typed in my password. I entered the 6-digit code from my authenticator app. The screen loaded. There was no red banner. There was no warning. The dashboard was clean, white, and boring. Welcome. Daisy. Total balance. $480,000.00. And there, right underneath the balance, was a small line of green text that I had never noticed before, but which now looked like the most beautiful poetry ever written. Status, active, fraud protection, enabled, alerts, on. I stared at it. Fraud protection, enabled, for 34 years. I had thought my parents were my protection. I thought their meddling, their control, their constant criticism was a form of armor they were building around me. I thought they were the firewall keeping the bad world out. But they weren't the firewall. They were the virus. They were the ones draining the system. They were the ones hacking the code. And now, finally, the system had done what they never did. It had recognized the threat. It had locked the doors. It had refused them access. I was safe. Not because they loved me, but because I had outsmarted them. I closed the laptop. The apartment was quiet. I was alone. But I wasn't lonely. I had my cat, I had my career, I had my money, and I had the truth. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. The lights of Chicago were coming on, a million little grids of electricity glowing in the twilight. Somewhere out there, my parents were sitting in a lawyer's office, trying to explain why they had a fake stamp and a stolen template. Somewhere out there, Sloane was realizing that being the favorite daughter didn't mean anything when the handcuffs went on. But in here, in this apartment, the air was clean. I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat down on the couch. I didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there, enjoying the silence. The silence of no notifications. The silence of no demands. The silence of access granted. On my own terms. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed watching Daisy take back control and outsmart the people who tried to erase her, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to Nina Revenge Stories for more dramas just like this one. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you tuning in from your kitchen, your car, or maybe your office while you pretend to work? Drop a comment below and let me know your location and what you would have done if you were in Daisy's shoes. And if you really want to help the channel grow, smash that hype button so this story can reach even more people. Stay safe, trust your gut, and check your bank accounts.